ask. Really talk about that. We're going to tune in with 10 o'clock news at 10 o'clock and see what gobbledygook they're talking about. But until then, we're going to just repeat these headlines. Alex Hammond gets dick slammed in the door. He's in shit. Sturgeon left feeling flummoxed. Well, don't you ever wonder with these things, the people who stay quiet, the people who got their positions, what they got, what they wanted? You know, if they come forward, they're basically saying, yes, we were prepared to put out to get ahead. No pun intended. Weinstein gets 23 years. Marvelous, wonderful. But there'll probably be a fake suicide, and we'll all think he's dead, and he'll go and live with Jeffrey Weinstein, Epstein, Weinstein. God, too similar, aren't they? Maybe we should watch them. Biggest budget giveaway ever? Well, the Tories are going to spend some money. Well, that's lovely, great. And someone got corona. That's not going away, is it? And we're going to talk about that today quite seriously, in a sense of, who should be most afraid of these viruses, aka the inbred. So we'll look at that, and we're going to clarify some stuff on histamines, and we're going to throw something in quickly about the mark of the beast. We'll do that then before 10 o'clock. Right, as I mentioned it first, let's first of all go to the, let's do the mark of the beast thing first, because that's interesting. Ooh. Right, let me just check you can see it straight. Ooh, get some feedback and it will blow up. Dum 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 dum. Right, so mark of the beast. Mark of the beast. And who will worship the mark of the beast? What do we got here? It's a coin. When were they coining things and they worship it? It's money. They worship money. They have money written on. Think about. And those who have been sealed, well, they are the servants of God. And that's what they have on their foreheads. So that was just that. That was going to be quick. So the next thoroughly interesting I can show you is, we'll say the most interesting thing to last. Let's just look at this. Let's clarify what's going on with these histamines. So Wikipedia, honestly, anyone who reads this, listen. Histamine is an organic nitrogenous compound involved in local immune responses, as well as regulating physiological function in the gut and acting as a neurotransmitter for the brain, spinal cord, and uterus. So far you're thinking, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, neurotransmitters, we need them. Obviously we do. It is a good thing, I'm saying. And then it goes on. Histamine is involved in the inflammatory response and has a central role as a mediator of itching. So there they've sort of mentioned two things. Inflammatory response, when something swells. Now, they would say that's a bad thing, but in a sense, sometimes that's necessary. Has to sort of incubate something, has a central role as a mediator of itching. I know itching is part of our immune system. If you're having a trouble with an itch, keep thinking about touching your face and you let this itch get to you, right? You can't. You have to sort of allow it and love it. And that's like stage one of dealing with that. As part of an immune response to foreign pathogens, histamine is produced by basophils mast cells found in nearby connected tissues. Histamine increases the permeability in the capillaries to white blood cells and some proteins and allow them to engage pathogens in the infected tissues. It consists of imidazole ring attached to an ethyl. Right. It kind of tries to blind you with a bit of science there. And then when you read this storage and release, honestly, it's too boring. We won't. So then somebody else did a good description. Histamine biologically active substance found in great variety of living organisms, albeit unevenly, throughout the animal kingdom, and is present in many something plague, bacteria and insect venom. Histamine is chemically classified as an amine anorganic molecule based. Right, so that's sort of making it sound really bad, right? So I can just tell you at the end here we've got some a description of it. So I'm actually going to close that tab because of the cookies. Right, now this is where you can histamines. And this is very interesting reading, but I won't go through it all. But basically, let's just, because one thing I couldn't find out is does cooking affect it? HTV sufferers, if you have tics, it's important to eat foods that are low in histamine levels. This is if you have this problem. So all the information I could find on the internet was like for people who had intolerance issues, allergies, right? Their immune system is too bubbly, it's too fiery, it's ready to go all time. So if you like that, then they would say avoid or reduce eating canned foods and ready meals. Ripened and fermented foods, cheeses, alcoholic drinks, right? That's what I was saying before. But if you're ill and you need your immune system to work, these are the very things to eat. And people know these work. Like you have a good meal like this, and you tackle anything, right? And we often, if we're busy in our lives, we do need to use food in a sense to boost our immune system. So anyway, so then you can see lower down, it says about the fresh food, which is low in histamines. And then there's high histamine level foods, matured cheeses, smoked meat products, shellfish, beans and pulses, chickpeas, nuts, chocolates. And then it's histamine liberators, which I think allow it to flow, right? So those things, and I think they're all pretty good things to me. The diamine oxidase blockers, not too sure about, but that is quite a complicated article. It could be a lot simpler than that. So did a quick thing. Does cooking kill histamines? Heating food to temperature sufficient to kill bacteria while cooking is also essential to prevention of the formation of histamine. However, histamine, and it's like talking about it in the singular, heat will not eliminate the toxins. They call it a toxin, right? It's weird. Because you got this thing, so vitamin C is supposed to be good for the immune system, but supposed to be an antihistamine. Numerous studies have shown that the intake of vitamin C as a supplement for histamine intolerance can reduce the symptoms of histamine intolerance itself. Additionally, vitamin C is a powerful antioxidant and provides numerous additional benefits to the body, including preventing biological aging. So, you see, this thing is balance. You need some. So now read this. Right. Histamine is an autocoid, which means it acts similarly to a local hormone near its site of synthesis. It is produced as part of immune response to invading bodies and triggers inflammation, as well as performing several important functions in the bowel. So you fucking need it. Excuse my language. Much of the histamine in the body is produced by the granules in mast cells and basophils as part of the local immune response to the presence of invading bodies. So the body, this is what part of what the body produces. It's produced by the body, it makes it itself. So the basophils and mast cells are found in nearby connective tissue and are particularly abundant at sites where injury may occur, such as nose, mouth, feet. They're there ready to come and help you. Services of the internal organs and blood vessels. Histamine is also made in the brain, where it acts as a neurotransmitter or a chemical messenger that carries signals between nerves. So it's got, I'd rather have it than not, right? Another important site where histamine is stored and released is in the right, something like that. So can we clarify? Balance, right? We need a bit of histamines. Right. We've got 4 minutes to get on with the And this, probably don't need to go into this hugely. In fact, I've only got 2 tabs. Right. Who is most afraid of these viruses? Who most wants to eliminate all viruses off the face of the planet? Who wants to vaccinate everyone? The inbred, the rich. Genetic diversity is the total number of genetic characteristics in the genetic makeup of a species. It's distinguished from genetic variability, which describes a tendency of genetic characteristics to vary. Right, I'm just going to read this end bit down here. This occur something about, basically if you got varied genes, then in changing situation your body can kind of switch to the other one. So frequency dependent selection is the hypothesis that as alleles become more common, we look at that. That's the sort of type of 2 different dreams. The alleles become more common. They become more vulnerable. This occurs in host pathogen interactions where a high frequency of defensive allele among the host means that it's more likely that a pathogen will spread if it's able to overcome that allele. So it is your susceptibility to getting attacked, right? You reduce it when you're inbred. This is a picture of the map of the world with the darker colors are where the most inbred are, apparently. It's just something I searched. So frequency of cousin marriage. This is what this shows. Frequency of cousin marriage. So yeah. People in those darker blue areas would potentially be more susceptible. I mean, see, Italy is slightly darker than Europe, but only very slightly. Turkey is apparently quite dark. So all of this, Syria, or Arabia. So that's Pakistan. That's really bad. Is that why they're so worried about polio in Pakistan? So yeah, I don't know what these are necessarily. Yeah, so that's that. Let's go and get ready. Go to the 10 o'clock news. And say hello if you want. And if you want to ask something, you are welcome. Or if it's the YouTube bot, then look, YouTube bot. If I play my guitar and sing a song, that's not copyright. You shouldn't be cutting them out. Okay. Listen to the end of whatever crap they've got on.
In Italy, jumping by nearly 200.
And I better turn it off when their theme tune comes on.
In the southwest, rain will.
I'll play my own. I've closed it now. So how you doing? Luke, type on the keyboard. Hello. Maybe you haven't got one. Was that fun? So I will be doing these every week in the middle of the week. So either on the Wednesday or the Thursday, depending on how I'm feeling. And I was going to do it tomorrow because that would have been a week. But then I was just like, I was thinking about it. I was jotting some things down. So I just thought, it should be done really. Oh.
Civil liberties on the back burner. And the disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein, now a convicted rapist, is 3 years.
It's a closing chapter on a very, very long journey. I was 24 when all this started, and I could not have imagined that 2 years later we would finally see Harvey behind bars.
We'll hear from one of his victims after the BBC News read for us this evening by Zeb Soames.
The Chancellor Rishi Sunak conservative austerity setting out a big increase in public spending and £12 billion to soften the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. In his first budget, Mr. Sunak outlined measures to support businesses, which are expected to take a heavy hit because of the epidemic. He also promised to give billions the health service required to tackle the disease. Labour said the spending spree wouldn't undo the damage caused by years of austerity by the Tories. Is our political correspondent, Jessica Parker.
A new Chancellor, a new approach, and it adds up to a lot of spending. It's been matched by equivalent tax rises. Rather, there'll be a lot more borrowing, an extra £100 billion over the rest of this Parliament. Rishi Sunak opened by outlining plans to tackle coronavirus, although Labour said cash for the health service was too little, too late. Elsewhere, business rates will be suspended for many firms, with plans to make it easier for people to claim sick pay or benefits should they need to stay home. More broadly, there was a further freeze on fuel duty and money for road and rail, all part of Boris Johnson's levelling up mantra. But if you spend big, people will expect significant returns. And there'll be questions too over whether this big spend might put a strain on public finances.
Freeze tax on fags.
10 years of austerity when the government prioritised balancing the books, the extra spending is largely to be paid for with a big increase in borrowing. The free market think tank, the Adam Smith Institute, accused Mr. Sunak of spending like a drunken sailor. Robert Choate of the Office for Budgetary Responsibility said it was the biggest sustained giveaway in almost 30 years, which could leave the public finances vulnerable.
The big strategic judgment that the Chancellor has made today is that it's okay to continue borrowing quite a lot, year in, year out, to build up that debt because it's just so cheap for governments to borrow. And as long as that remains the case, it looks sustainable over the medium term. If things turn sour, then the arithmetic gets a lot more difficult.
2 more people have died from COVID-19 in the UK, bringing the total to 8. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the UK has now reached 460, following the biggest rise in a single day. The BBC understands an unnamed member of the Cabinet is self-isolating after coming into contact with the Health Minister, Nadine Dorries, who has confirmed she has contracted the virus. Her fellow minister, Ed Argar, is also quarantining himself as a precaution. The outbreak has now been declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization. Its Director General, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus,
you're genetically diverse,
changing its
like
advice
a mongrel,
about what countries
you'll
should
probably
do,
sail
but
for
hoped
it.
it would spur some into action.
Even those countries with community transmission or larger clusters can turn the tide on this virus. Several countries have demonstrated that this virus can be suppressed and controlled. The challenge for many countries who are now dealing with large clusters or community transmission is not whether they can do the same, it's whether they will.
The Italian Prime Minister has announced new restrictions after his country saw the
Italy,
biggest
man.
daily
They
rise
must
in
have a lot of
COVID-19 deaths
inbreds
of any nation during the
in
outbreak.
northern Italy.
Giuseppe Conte announced the closure of all shops except food stores and chemists, along with all bars and restaurants. 826 people
We got
have now
very
died
old
in the country,
population.
which is already subject to a nationwide quarantine, a rise of
must be at their
almost
peak.
200 today.
Rise of 200. It's
A
been
British
going up.
soldier and 2
more than
American
that.
service personnel have been killed
So
in a
it's
rocket
slowing
attack
down.
on the Taji military camp near the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. Our correspondent Mark Lobel has more details.
Around a dozen rockets were fired on the base housing coalition forces at around 7:30 p.m. local time. Camp Taji not only acted as the headquarters for the battle against the Islamic State group, but is where Iraqi forces are trained. As well as the 3 people killed, around a dozen coalition personnel are reported to have been injured. The Ministry of Defense is investigating what happened. The attacks bear the hallmarks of pro-Iranian fighters, and the fear is that this latest strike will fuel a recent upsurge in skirmishes between the Americans and Iranian-backed forces that have plagued Iraq for many months now.
The disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein has been sentenced to 23 years in prison for rape and sexual assault. He was found guilty of the offences at a trial in New
Trump
York
will want to
last
take
month.
revenge for that. If that was American
fall
deaths.
from grace for a man who was once one of Hollywood's most powerful
Or even on
figures.
America's side.
Our correspondent Nada Tawfiq reports from outside the court.
Harvey Weinstein's sentence put sexual predators on
This was
notice.
my medal
That was the
for
reaction from Manhattan's
being
District
in the
Attorney Cyrus
Norwegian
Vance.
army
During the
for a
emotional
year.
proceedings, Weinstein's victims, Mimi Haley and Jessica Mann, gave statements describing how the attacks had scarred them for life and how his conviction would protect others. All 6 women who testified embraced when the sentence was announced, and in the hallway in the courthouse they were greeted with applause. Weinstein, sitting in a wheelchair, showed no remorse. In a rambling statement before he was sentenced, he said he was worried that thousands of men were being denied due process
But I
in the
think what
Me Too
he
era.
did
His attorney,
is
Donna Rotuno, accused the judge of caving into pressure from the public.
A review
what he did,
that the conviction
he
of
wanted
the Lockerbie
to
bomber can be taken
instill the authority into these women who were going to be on screen. He wanted these women on screen to be lusted after. He was, in a sense, creating something by what he did to these women. That's what I believe.
A Libyan Secret Service agent,
I think he was
was the
probably
only
getting
man
off
ever
on it
convicted.
as well, and he was
He
some
was
sort of
jailed for life
freak.
in
But
2001.
he had another
This
agenda.
is the second time the Scottish Criminal Cases
sort of
Review
making the
Commission
women
has examined the case,
lusty.
and the second time they have said they
Yo,
thought there could have been a miscarriage
we have
of
our first guest
Abdul Basit
today.
al-Megrahi dropped his
Come on,
earlier appeal
sit down.
as he was suffering from terminal prostate cancer and died
Just
in
say
Libya
hello, come
in
on.
2012.
Sit down.
His son
Sit down
Ali
in the
said
chair for a
his
second.
family
He's
has
live.
Don't
his
see
father's
people
name
watching
will be
and they're
good.
not
Katrina,
probably a robot.
Seb, thank you very much.
Watching something. We're doing the news at 9:45. There's
Today
the camera.
was not the budget day the government had planned or the pundits had predicted. After Boris Johnson's general...
She stole his chocolate. Well, I couldn't read them. What did they say?
Read them.
She stole my slipping chocolate. I dreamed the night about eating that chocolate bar, and she just fucking ate it like it was hers. Is that Meghan Markle?
Also,
Right, off
look
you pop.
at
No, you're paying people off. They're going away. Copyrighted.
it's not. It's H banging out 3 guys.
Right.
H banged out 3 guys by
Go away.
I'm done.
No,
Meghan Markle's been very snarky about the fact that the Queen doesn't own the word royal. Well, yes, she does. 70 years of service dictates that the Queen owns the word royal. And if you want to ask me who owns the word Trump, well, that would be Meghan Markle.
Yeah. All right, come on. Get lost.
Wait.
No more videos.
Wait, this one's sick. Oh no.
Yeah, that's what most people say. It's all blurred, so get it out. Get. Just go. This is what all you lot watch. Right.
Workers to access benefits rather than
Yeah, well,
working out of a fear they'll have
there's
nothing
enough
to
of
live
that
on.
shit on the
And
internet
offer rent
already.
relief to businesses like those in hospitality.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's good stuff, but once you've seen it, you've seen
The
it.
kind of budget help contain an epidemic. Well, Syed B. Omar is director of the Institute for Global Health at Yale University, himself an epidemiologist. Mr. Omar, thank you very much for being with us on The World Tonight. You've looked at the measures the Chancellor's put into place. They've impressed business people here. But can they also help people in the medical and scientific world in the fight against the virus?
Yes, they can be really useful. For example, one of the strategies we have.
Oh, this is so boring. Sorry.
You know, before
you can't skip the radio.
Become widely available.
See what they're saying on LBC.
Operation.
I've got to turn it down if the theme tune comes on.
And then taking those tough decisions of closures, cancellations, and social distancing. In 1918, those cities in the U.S. who took action faster and kept the controls on longer had half the death rate of those who started late or ended early.
So you think we can expect the UK potentially tonight or tomorrow, once the COBRA meeting is held, to update its advice to move to the delay phase of this outbreak and this plan to tackle it?
I guess he was talking about Spanish flu.
Yes, I mean the strategy is to try
genetic diversity. That's your answer.
The curve so that so the hospitals are able to take care of people.
The virus will always be
keep their
step
services
ahead.
going. That's the objective.
You know what I mean?
Doctor, I'm grateful to you. Thank you, Dr.
Depending on
Jonathan
how
Quick,
fast it
Professor of Global
spreads,
Health
they'll
at
never
Duke University's Global
really catch
Health
up with it.
Institute. Let's turn to what's been going on in Parliament. Last night, we brought you the news that the Health Minister, Nadine Dorries, had tested positive for coronavirus. We now know that 6 members of Parliament are having to self-isolate because they've met with Nadine Dorries
Who wants to
in the
pass on
past week or
genetic
so,
problems?
including an unnamed cabinet minister.
No
Earlier this
one
evening,
would
the
want
Health
to
Secretary,
do
Matt
that, would
Hancock,
they?
spoke in the Commons.
So don't plan how you run the world to create more genetic problems and think that science is just going to be able to sort it out.
Of course, in some ways, this House may have to function differently, but the ability to hold the government to account and to legislate are as vital in a time of emergency as in normal times. Our democracy is the foundation of our way of life. Mr. Speaker, around the world, the number infected is rising. As of today, here at home, 456 people have tested positive, and 8 people are...
91st. Justice James Burke could have sentenced him to between 5 and 29 years in prison.
Got some interesting
Last month, he was
videos.
convicted of
Actually,
forcibly
shut up.
performing all...
Let's do that actually, because no one bloody watched them. I'm gonna make you want me. Computer struggling. Oh yeah. Get the full-on feedback going. Right. So what you do is go to YouTube. And you go to my videos.